Demanding answers for an horrific attack on a hospital in Afghanistan. A place of healing becomes a scene of carnage. Also, a frantic search underway in Guatemala with hundreds of people feared trapped under rubble after a massive landslide. And later... Australia takes down the host nation at the Rugby World Cup. Hello and welcome to CNN Newsroom. I'm Lynda Kinkade. Thanks for joining us. We begin in Afghanistan, where we're learning more about a deadly airstrike on an aid hospital in the northern city of Kunduz. The US military is investigating whether one of its gunships is responsible for that attack. Doctors Without Borders, which runs the hospital, says the strike lasted for almost an hour. 12 staff members and 7 patients were killed, including 3 children. US President Barack Obama is offering his deepest condolences to the doctors, staff and civilians killed or injured in the strike. He said the Department of Defense has launched a full investigation and we will await the results of that inquiry before making a definitive judgment as to the circumstances of this tragedy. Doctors Without Borders says it was previously told all warring parties the hospital's exact location so it would not be struck. Christopher Stokes is the General Director for the aid group and spoke with us earlier about that attack.
Amongst the patients, 3 of them were children. Actually, the patients who died, apparently, some patients managed to make it under in a kind of bunker or a cellar under the hospital. Those who died were probably burnt in their beds, actually, because then the hospital, this part of the hospital caught fire. It was an absolutely dreadful scene, and this is a hospital that's been in Kunduz, and the conflict really around Kunduz has started for 4 or 5 days. So it was packed. There were over 100 patients. Our staff were in the hospital as well, and there was complete chaos. And this is really a complete a breach of humanitarian law. We sent the coordinates of this hospital to every party of the conflict in Kabul, in Washington, and with the Afghan opposition. So there really is nobody can claim that they didn't know what this building was. It's a very big, white, visible building in the middle of Kunduz.
A nurse who was working at the hospital at the time of the strike described the event as absolutely terrifying. Here's more of his first-person account. He said, "I don't know exactly how long, but it was maybe half an hour afterwards that they stopped bombing. We had to organise a mass casualty plan in the office, seeing which doctors were alive and available to help. We did an urgent surgery for one of our doctors. Unfortunately, he died there on the office table. We did our best, but it wasn't enough." The hospital, it has been my workplace and home for several months. Yes, it is just a building, but it is so much more than that. It is healthcare for Kunduz. Now it is gone. What is the benefit of this? For the latest, let's go to CNN international diplomatic editor Nic Robertson, who joins us live from Kabul. Nic, the UN have come out with some very strong words, calling the airstrikes on the medical staff tragic, inexcusable, possibly even criminal. We know the US is investigating. Is it likely we'll see an independent investigation?
Well, what the U.S. investigation is set out to do is under their sort of reporting 15-6 that the investigation is to be impartial, it's to look equally at the evidence from both sides, and it's to make reports and recommendations as warranted from what they find. The concern that Doctors Without Borders have at this time is that it is essentially, at this stage, the U.S. investigating something that the U.S. was possibly involved in. They would feel that that is not impartial and not independent. They want it to be an absolutely transparent process. They want not just the sort of the findings and the recommendations to be made public, but everything that the investigation finds as it sort of steps all the way through. So their real concern here is one of of impartiality, one of transparency. But I think the transparency that they're looking for here goes beyond the transparency of an investigation, that everyone can see what is happening. They see the steps in the process, they see the reports along the way, but that everyone can look at and can feel and say that you know, this was done in a fair and balanced way. That's what they say that they're looking for, and they're concerned that the impression created by the United States investigating actions they may have taken part in is not going to provide that.
And Nic, the Afghan Interior Ministry says that Taliban militants were hiding in the hospital. What else are they saying, and has the Taliban responded?
Well, we have heard from the health ministry here, if you will, some good news for Kunduz. They say they've just managed to get some of their own medical workers and medical supplies into Kunduz airport. The spokesman for the police chief in Kunduz said that when the attack was happening, Taliban were hiding, a number of Taliban were hiding in that compound. Doctors Without Borders say that the Taliban had come into the hospital earlier in the week, told them to continue with their operations, hadn't brought their weapons in. Doctors Without Borders believes there were no Taliban in there with weapons. The Taliban themselves are saying that that night there was fighting going on very close to the compound, not inside the compound, they say close to the compound, and that some of their fighters went inside the compound to escape the fighting. The impression they're giving is that they weren't engaged in combat. The picture it creates here is a narrative of a shifting battlefield, as battlefields are, and the potential there for the arc of fire, if you will, to move as potential targets move. But again, these details are all the details that the U.S. investigation is designed to find, and certainly the U.S., as we know, would not willingly, openly plan to target a hospital.
Of course. Okay, we'll leave it there for now. Nic Robertson in Kabul, Afghanistan, thank you very much.